my name is Angie. I'd like to continue on the first portion of my talk and to mention some stories about my dad, my brother, and my children's dads. They were big influence on my life. They helped me to learn, grow, and change. So I'll start off as because I didn't have my dad too much in my life except for in the very beginning. And oh, by the way, I've got Bell's palsy, so my face is, just bear with me. Hopefully I can get through this few minutes of talk. Um, my dad he was a hunter, he was a fisherman, he was a guide, he was a forest ranger, he was an infantryman, he was a violinist, and I remember when I was a baby that we had to go into a plane, a small plane, when he was a forest ranger, and we flew to Mackenzie Lake. And I remember when we were in the plane, I was looking out the window, and I says to my mom, I says, "Mom," I says, "look at all that grass." And she just kind of smiled and she says, "That's trees." And I think I fell asleep. That was just too much for me to comprehend. And same again as when he worked up in the tower, when he was at Forest Ranger. We went up in the tower and there's windows all around, and again you could see all the trees. And that ties in with my dreams that I have shared about the future. So that ties in because a year and a half to 2 years ago, in May, I I had to take a plane to from Sault Ste. Marie to Fort Frances because there was no more Greyhound bus service. So I had to fly here to do my talk on my reserve in Manitou. And Thunder Bay, as soon as we left Thunder Bay, of course all the clouds, the gray was there. You couldn't even see the ground or nothing, but I was looking out the window. I was looking everywhere. And you could see between the cracks in the clouds, I saw black pools that had squiggly lines. It connected to another black pool, another squiggly line. And there's no trees. There's no more trees. When I saw that, I cried. I cried 2 hours straight. And every time I found a crack in the cloud, or that, I don't even know if it's cloud, but it's what those planes spray in the sky that you can't see through it, but I would see through the cracks, and there was black pools of I don't know what. They're everywhere down there. So to me, this is the beginning of what is happening to our country, our earth. It's We're making it so we can't even live on it. Like in my dreams, we can't even live on our earth anymore. So that is, to me, is very, 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 very important. And if I had the money, I would take a plane ride and take people that know something, people that are smart, leaders, native people. I would take them on a plane and show them. But nobody does this. We don't go flying around. So it's really important for people to know this is what I saw. and that was just a year and a half ago. Completely different from the way I saw it 50, 60 years ago when I was a baby. And well, that's really, 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 really sad and important. We have to know this. We have to find out. We have to figure things out. So that's what I want to say about that right now. But I want to lighten up. I want to lighten it up a little bit because I want to tell you a little story that when we were at Mackenzie Lake, when my dad was at Forest Ranger, well, he brought me fishing and he took me in the canoe and we went right almost to the middle of the lake, Mackenzie Lake. And when we got in the canoe, my dad says we have to be very, very, very quiet. He says the fish can hear us. And I says okay. Then as we're paddling along, I mean my dad was paddling along. Anyway, my hand, the water was right there from the canoe. My hand, my fingers, and I was just going like this. And my dad gave me a look, and he didn't say anything. It wasn't not a stern look. He just like looked at me, and he said, "They can hear that too." So I took my hand out of the water. Anyway, so when he finally found the spot where he wanted to to fish, well, it wasn't very long, and he caught the fish. One, two, three fish. So I'm at one end of the canoe, my dad's at the other end of the canoe, and the fish were in the middle. But they weren't dead. They were alive. And they were jumping. I could see their big old eyes just like looking at me. Ah, blah, blah. They were just going like this and jumping around. They could almost stand on their tails, feathers, or no, their tail fins. And they were just like standing up. And I was starting to get scared because my dad was over there. So I says to my dad, I says, okay, Dad. I says, you can throw them back in now. And he goes, he just laughs and he goes, throw them back in. That's our supper. So yeah, these are, some of I've had such a diverse life. And because we were homeless on my reserve, because my dad was from a different reserve, we had such diversity. We lived in the bush, we lived all over in the countryside. My dad was a pulp cutter, he was a guide, he was a fisherman, and he knew all about the woods. So he always got jobs in the woods. And, and so, like my girls' dad, he says that's the first time I ever seen that. He was an expert, like with his knife. He used to hone his knife every day, sharpen it, oil it, everything like this. But when he would get a fish, he was able to fillet it both sides, and the head would still be on there, and the tail, so it would be just one. And he would win those competitions where the fastest filleters. So he was really good. It's like ching ching, doof, gone. My goodness, my dad. So yeah, and that's one of the things that I saw as a little child, a little baby. There was one more other thing that I want to share that I saw with my dad. He was a violinist, and this connects to the first part of my story where I loved those shoes, and only about the going to church. That's what I loved about going to church was my shoes, those little shoes. So when I was a baby, uh, my mom and dad were on top of a stage. They were higher up, and my dad played violin, and my mom, she would jig. So they would like, I guess they were just like, I don't know, like they would do that kind of a thing. That was very, so I always remember my dad and his violin and my mom's shoes. They always clicked when she jigged. So to me, I guess that's what helped me to be close to my mom when I wore those shoes. So that's some of the a couple of the stories about my dad. He was he had a hard time because he went to the war. He suffered and the all that killing bothered him very big time deep. So that's one of the reasons why he was an alcoholic and and for the reasons of being homeless and we lived with my grandmother and sometimes even my grandmother wouldn't be home. Sometimes my grandma would even go with and leave us all there, especially in the summer times. When my dad worked, we lived wherever he worked, and that's what I loved about it because I love being out in the bush. But on the reserve, that meant he wasn't working, and they would drink, and of course desert us. We'd just be left there. And so this is where I'm gonna bring in my brother. My brother was 3 years older than me. He would he was my protector. Him and Dolly, my cousin, would be the three of us. I have older sisters, and I got a baby sister who's 5 years younger than me. But we'd be left, and my brother always took care of us. And no matter, even if it was in the winter time, he would he would go get the wood, keep the fire going. He would be checking the traps, checking to see if we had a rabbit. So I'm gonna say special thanks to my brother. After I did healing in 2009, I went to visit him in Vancouver, and I thanked him for keeping me alive. Because there was times, but so I just want to say a special thanks to George, my brother, my big brother. I want to say special thanks to Dolly, Darlene Brown, my cousin who passed away when she was 14. She took care of me too. Very, very. I lost a good soul right there. Good soul protector. So to continue on, when I left the residential school after I pretty nearly killed that nun, I sort of went on a different journey than what I did when I was in the residential school before I blocked out that portion of my life. I started drinking. I started running, not really so much running around like being promiscuous or anything, but yeah, running around, going out at night, climbing out the windows, sneaking downtown, sitting in a cafe in Fort Francis, right here in Fort Francis, till all hours, till all the bars closed to see if we could see anybody we knew coming out. And then there was this one time I actually did see my dad. He called me over. He says, Angela. He's the only one who ever called me Angela and got away with it. He said, Bema. So I went and sat with him. Then he told me the story of that I almost died. He says, when you were a baby, he says you got into mom's purse and you ate all those X-lax. So my mom didn't even eat, I don't know, maybe one piece or two. So it was like a chocolate bar. and I must have ate that whole thing. But anyway, that was when we had to fly in, like at Mackenzie Lake. There was no roads, nothing. We had to fly in. So my dad had to run 2 miles to the tower. He had to run 2 miles to the tower, and he had to radio in, and they brought a plane, picked me up, took me to a hospital, I think in Thunder Bay, and I I don't know what they did, but my dad was crying and crying and crying and crying and crying and saying that I almost died. And I just hugged my dad and I said, Dad, I'm here, I'm right here. So that was when I was 10, he told me this. Anyway, yeah, that's like there's just so many stories that I can't do it all in one or two or three videos. But I also would like to share about my kids' dads. When I met my boys' dad, my three boys' dad, when we got together, he changed my whole world view. I I didn't know what happened to us as a people. I didn't know nothing. We didn't learn this in school. But they took over. I guess that's the nicest way I can put it. They just took over our country. And so I was enlightened to our struggles, the struggles that we have been through, gone through, and I learned all of this with my boys' dad. He was very intelligent. He was a very intelligent man. So I'd like to just say a special Jimmy, which he's passed now. He's Jayabun. A special thanks to turning my head, enlightening me, teaching me, showing me, making me understand, changing my life. I quit drinking. He changed my life completely, and then my son came. So those, well, after we got together, we left the city and we moved to Ganyange. So if anybody knows anything about Ganyange, that's Mohawks' territory in New York State in the Adirondack Mountains at Moss Lake, where they took back the land. And they took over. We had guns in there and everything like this, and people were shooting at it. And that was in 73, 74. 1974 we moved to Gunyanga. So this is the person who I became. I beat around people that were non-alcoholics, non-drug users. I don't even think drugs was a big issue back then, back in the 60s. Well, maybe pot and weed and stuff, but not really so much like today. It's horrendous today. But we lived drug-free and alcohol-free in Ganyange for 4 years. And then from there we went on to the longest walk. And I wanted to adventure because by this time I had three babies, the three boys. And I wanted to adventure. And I said, my mom will watch the boys. Let's go hitchhike around. Let's do something. And he didn't want to. Jay didn't want to. And so I changed my life around at that point. And on the longest walk in 1978, that's where we broke up. And I actually got together with my girls' dad. So I'll talk about my girls' dad, Jim. He's he learned me more about on the spiritual level. He was a sun dancer. He was a pipe carrier. He was a very strong leader. He was in Wounded Knee, and this is what he brought into my life. He brought me spirituality, love for my land, and I always had, but now I double love it. I love this water. I love this river, rainy river right here, rainy lake over there. We gotta protect our land, our country. Gotta change it around. Well, anyway, that's what I wanted to say about the male figures in my life that have changed my life around, taught me different things, taught me new things, taught me how to be a strong woman. This portion of the video is my story on forgiveness. I didn't even realize how deep root, how deep set my hatred was for the people on my reserve, because I blamed them for the reason why we ended up here at the residential school, because we were homeless and my mom wouldn't leave the reserve. And so we had to live in my grandma's 2 room, half a house, 2 room with all of us. And so that was very deep. And when I left this area when I was 11 years old, I swore to myself I was never going to go back to Manitou, ever in my life. But after healing, I went to Nanandawe for healing a second time. And it was only for 10 days this time because the government had cut down the funding. And so my sister, I asked her to come and pick me up in Kenora, and she brought me to Manitou. And she goes, I'm going to take you around to go see, we'll go see so and so and so and so. I'm not going to say their names. And, well, I had no choice. I was at her mercy. She's going to bring me around. And there she brought me to these people that were like on their deathbed. And by the second one, there was one person that was smoking a cigarette and pulling her tank to help her breathe. So on her last few breaths, she's still smoking a cigarette. One was seeing him in his bed, and his legs were up in the air, and he was all bloated like his legs. And I was just like, oh my God. I said, this is so horrible. I said, they're dying. And then I didn't say this out loud. This is in my mind. And my heart just went out to them. And in my heart, in my mind, I said, I forgive you. I forgive you all that you did to my family. And I swear I had to grab onto something because I felt like I was just gonna float away like a little piece of a feather, fluff of a feather. I thought I was gonna float away. That's how heavy I was holding in that hate inside of my body for 50 years. And I let it go when I seen them on their deathbeds. And later on that night, we were at my sister's place, and she's right along the river, Manitou. And we were talking outside, and it was nighttime, dark, and she doesn't smoke. So I was having a cigarette outside, gapping away. She was facing the house, I was facing the river, and then all of a sudden I seen a blue orb. Boom! It just come right down in front and went into the river. And to me, that was I was being shown that I did something right by forgiving. And then the next day, she brought me back, and we went the long way around Lake Superior to the state side, Minnesota. And when we were pulling out of the falls, International Falls, Minnesota, when we were driving south, a big eagle came, and it was huge. And it came and it flew right at us, and I could see his face right in the front windshield, seeing his eyes, and he looked right at us. And I was just going like, "Did you see that, Dolores? Did you see that? Did you see that?" She says, "Yeah." And I says, "Oh my God, I thought it was just me, because we know, I know that was a spirit. It wasn't an eagle, a real eagle, because it was giant." And so that's how I'm going to end this portion. Forgiveness is healing, and that's what I was being shown. Oh, Jimmy Glitch.